Hello, welcome to Truth Sentinel, watching over the truth in the news. Today's date is 26th of August 2014. Welcome everybody, thanks for your continued support. Currently in Southampton still. Today's news. Israel and Palestine militants in Gaza have agreed a long-term truce. The fighting's been going on for about 7 weeks now. I'm sure everyone's heard it in the news. Over 2,200 people dead. It remains to be seen whether this truce will hold anyway. US President Barack Obama has authorized surveillance flights over Syria in order to gain some intelligence on the activities of IS, or as I said before, ISIL, ISIS, IS, who knows what else. I mean, they keep changing the name and there's no reference to the fact that they keep using different names. Very odd. The US is already carrying out strikes against IS in Iraq. And on Monday, the Syrian government actually said it would work with international community to fight against IS. So Syria has offered to work together with the international community to fight the Islamic State. But they've warned that the US must coordinate with the Syrian government before launching the airstrikes. It's becoming very complicated as to who's fighting who. It was only within this year that everyone was talking about arming the rebels who were fighting Assad. Now these same rebels appear to be IS, or at least factions of the same group, and they were being funded by the West. And now they're talking about switching sides and joining Assad fighting IS. It's all becoming very confusing. It reminds me of an episode of Revolution, if ever you watched that. People keep switching sides on that as well. Ukraine's president has dissolved parliament and he's calling elections basically because he says there's too many people in the government who are backers of ousted President Viktor Yanukovych, and that he believed the majority of Ukrainians wanted a new parliament. So those elections are going to happen in October, the 26th of October. So far over there as well, over 2,000 people have died, mostly in eastern Ukraine. Maybe going back to Ukraine myself in a number of weeks. I'm just going to keep an eye on the situation there. I'm not crazy. I'm not going to go there if it's spread to other parts of Ukraine. Scotland's Alex Salmond and Alistair Darling have clashed in their TV debate over here in the UK ahead of the referendum as to whether Scotland should split from the UK. I hope that whichever way they vote, the will of the people is respected, but still the media circus is as nauseating as any political campaign. Hundreds of people have attended the funeral of the black teenager killed by police in Ferguson, Missouri. People at the Friendly Temple Baptist Church sang and prayed and remember the life of Michael Brown. Michael Brown, who was unarmed, was killed in August, on the 9th of August, after being stopped by a police officer for walking in the middle of the street, which is apparently an offence these days. My personal opinion is I've seen too many videos now of the police in the US shooting dead, unarmed people in situations where it was unnecessary. I saw one where they told the guy to put his hands up and he got out of a vehicle, put his hands up, and they shot him anyway. I've talked about the other case of the tramp who was minding his own business and they punched him to death basically and sat on him. There's just too many cases now. I saw another one the other day where they just shot him point blank range. I think if the person that they're approaching is not causing an offence, then they should walk on by. I mean, we're having stop and search laws in the UK now as well, where they can stop you. And it's happened to some of my friends. They're introducing a code of practice, but personally, I just think they should leave people alone. If they're not committing an offence, stay away from us, you know. Anyway, Michael Brown's death sparked days of protests and violent clashes. But apparently tensions have eased in recent days. Other news, the World Health Organization is calling for a range of tough regulations restricting the use of e-cigarettes, those highly dangerous e-cigarettes. According to the World Health Organization, they should be banned in public spaces and workplaces. And I would imagine they would ban pretend cigarettes, if people just pretended to smoke with just their hands, because basically they're losing too much money through taxation. So they don't want anything that was actually going to stop people from smoking. That's how it appears to me. Let me know what you think about that. That's my opinion. On the subject of health, British Ebola nurse brought back to England for treatment. So it is strange how they're flying people from that area of Africa where the Ebola virus has killed, again, more than 2,000 people. That seems to be a commonly recurring number recently. How they're flying them to different parts of the world. It's, I've heard of cases going to the US, to Australia, to the UK. It's like they're importing the virus. I mean, it may not be the case, but certainly you would think with a deadly virus like that, you wouldn't be bringing people into different zones. But, if it doesn't break out here, then fair enough. But it does. Then you've got to wonder, well, how did it get here then, Japanese court has ordered the operator of the Fukushima nuclear plant to pay damages to the family of someone who evacuated and then killed herself later because she was forced to leave her home and didn't know what was going to happen, what she was going to do for a job, since their business was shut down as well. And there's been apparently quite a number of cases of suicides over that event. I hope to be able to talk about the Fukushima disaster in next week's episode. As I mentioned before, I used to live in the Fukushima area myself for a number of years. So I'm going to talk about what happened there and what the repercussions are these days, and tell you a little bit about my time there as well. Not that it'll cast too much light on the incident, but maybe just about the mentality there, maybe. Things seem to have gone very quiet on the UK government child abuse scandal. It wouldn't actually surprise me if they started a war or something on that kind of scale, just to avert people's attention for the fact that our government in the UK is infested with paedophiles and secrets and cover-ups of what's going on there. I mean, what happened to this investigation we were promised, and where is Leon Britton at the moment? Seems very, very quiet on him. Then there's a complete media blackout. Only one thing that's happened, that's Cliff Richard's been arrested. Is that as a decoy to get people's attention onto him? I do know there is allegedly a case against him, and this relates to the guest house, Elms Guest House, many years ago. If you'd like to know more about that, have a look at Pie and Mash Films, and you'll find out about the work that Bill Maloney has been doing over the years to help expose these people in our governments. On a similar theme, former Vatican ambassador and child abuser Joseph Wesolowski has been stripped of his immunity from investigation under the normal legal process that other people are subject to. Basically, they've had to do that so that he can be prosecuted under normal law. And it's interesting, isn't it, that people in the Vatican, a number of people in the Vatican do have immunities from the law. I mean, that's crazy. I know that the Vatican has its own internal code, and priests are expected to keep things secret. So if they hear of someone committing child abuse or know about it, then it's forbidden for them to go to the press. They should speak to them internally so they can then, of course, cover it up. It seems to be the way with a lot of our institutions, government and religious institutions. They have ways to cover up what's going on there. People have literally got away with murder over the years due to that stupid system. I think that system should be changed as well. Last episode we talked to Gareth Icke about music, politics, war and peace. Bit of a change today. We're going to be talking about something a bit more spiritual. It's all interconnected, I think. I don't know if you're a spiritual person, but if not, there's still a lot of things that can be found from studying some of these matters as to why other people who do believe in religious faiths and in spiritual matters, what motivates them. It might help you to understand some of the things that are going on. So today we're going to talk about something that not enough people talk about. I mean, people are often so immersed in their own lives, they often neglect to ask themselves, what is this all about? What is this life about? Why are we here? Is there a spirit world? Is there an afterlife? Maybe as people get older, they might start to think that, but, we don't spend an awful lot of time looking at it or studying it. I mean, the afterlife, the concept of a realm in which people's souls go after their bodies have died. There's very different ideas of the afterlife, but the common factor is that some part of people's soul goes on to another world, in contrast to the belief that there is oblivion and nothingness after death. And in some views, obviously, the individual may be reborn into this world and begin a life cycle over again, so reincarnation. We're also going to talk about angels. What are they? Do they exist? Angels, often thought to be of humanoid form with feathered wings on their back and halos around their heads. That's found in a lot of various religions and mythologies. They're seen as more friendly celestial beings who act as go-betweens between heaven and earth, or as guardian spirits or guides, maybe, sometimes protecting and guiding human beings and carrying out God's work. We're also going to talk about darker angels and entities, including one character that you may know about, the Mothman. Mothman was a moth-like creature, like a giant one, seen in the Point Pleasant area of West Virginia from November 1966 to December 1967. And the first newspaper report was published in November 1966, titled "Couples See Man-Sized Bird Creature Something." You may have also seen the movie The Mothman Prophecies with Richard Gere, which was based on John Keel's 1975 book, The Mothman Prophecies. There was a case in 1966 when there was about 5 men digging a grave in a cemetery in West Virginia, and they saw a man-like figure fly low from the trees over their heads, and that's one of the first sightings, but it was seen by quite a large number of people. So that's what gives it more credence as a story, is that there was, in that case, there was 5 people. There was a couple driving along in their car. They said they saw a large white creature whose eyes glowed red when the car headlights picked it up. They described it as a large flying man with 10-foot wings following their car while they were driving in an area outside of the town known as the TNT area, because it was a former World War II munitions plant. We had, policemen, firemen, who said that they'd seen this. Mason County Sheriff George Johnson commented that he believed the sightings were a large heron, which sounds pretty unlikely, and other people said bats, but I think there's a big difference between a heron and something with 10-foot wings. Okay, anyway, so we're going to talk about that. We're also going to look into dreams and their meaning. What about the content and purpose of dreams, which are not definitively understood, although they have been looked at scientifically. So we're going to talk to a lady, an American researcher and writer on topics related to spirituality, the occult and paranormal. If you type her name into Google, you'll find out that she's written more than 45 books with titles about the afterlife and ghosts and Mothman and angels and dreams. She's covered so many different subjects, and you can find her interviews on YouTube as well. Her name is Rosemary Ellen Guiley. She's been on Coast to Coast with George Norrie, and she was kind enough to come and talk to us. Apologies for the odd bump or click you may hear. Here's the interview. Hello, Rosemary.
Hello, Scott.
Hi, very pleased to have you with us today on Truth Sentinel.
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you.
Thank you. I was looking at some of the topics you've researched, and it's quite wide-ranging. I came across jinn, shadow people, afterlife, ghost dreams, vampires, Mothman, angels, and miracles. Are there any more areas of the paranormal that you focus on?
I have my fingers in just about every paranormal and metaphysical pie you can think of. And if I have not done a complete book on a subject, I've probably done something in it in one of my encyclopedias. I'm interested in so many things, and they all really tie together. I have concentrated on a few topics that have had great audience appeal and also have had a lot of personal interest to me. Angels would be one, vampires, intuition and developing the psychic side, and how we can train our consciousness to manifest things in a better way. I've always been interested in divination and clairvoyance, and I also do a lot of paranormal investigation, and that involves people's problems with paranormal phenomena, when entities come and occupy spaces and even attach to people. So I characterize my work as A to Z, angels to zombies, and everything in between, and that it covers both the light side and the dark side. I've always felt from the beginning of my career that it's important to be educated about both sides. And the dark side especially holds a lot of fear and uncertainty for many people, and yet that's often where we need the most education.
I had some technical difficulties at this point and lost some of the recording. So let's pick it up again when we're talking about Mothman and how it affected the town where it first appeared.
There wasn't a single family untouched by the deaths. And with that, everything came to a stop, including sightings of Mothman. And nothing quite like that has ever taken place again, even though people say they've seen Mothman or dark shapes that they interpret as Mothman. Mothman then gained a reputation as being a harbinger of doom, and my personal feeling on that is that's a projection from people. The fact that it was there at a time that there was a disaster, it was around for 13 months before this happened, and so there's no real logical way to connect this entity to a disaster. My feeling is that the kinetic energy from all of this psychic turmoil and interdimensional turmoil became so intense that it did affect physical environment. There were structural flaws in the bridge, and that may have been exacerbated by some kind of psychic vibration that we might not fully understand. However, now that people have become convinced that Mothman is a harbinger of doom, anytime there is a big disaster on the planet, we have post reports of people saying that they have seen Mothman or a winged humanoid entity in the vicinity. And how much of that can be given credence, it's hard to say. Prior to this 1966 wave, there were many sightings of dark-winged humanoids all over the world, and most of them were what we would call aimless sightings, aimless hauntings. That is, we couldn't find a purpose for it. It's just there. Someone just sees it, and then it's gone, and there doesn't seem to be any apparent purpose for its manifestation. So the Mothman mystery continues. Now, I go to the Mothman Festival every year. That's the third weekend in September. I've been doing that since 2004, and I've spent quite a bit of time in West Virginia researching all sorts of things, ghosts and hauntings and mysterious creatures, UFO activity, and things along those lines. West Virginia is one of the most intensely haunted states that I have ever come across in America. And I think that it's a fertile ground for all kinds of things to happen. So we had a confluence of circumstances that just provided the right combustion for this particular wave to happen. And it's left a lasting impact on the area.
The description is sort of very tall, winged humanoid creature, dark one. Is there no way that could be something like a fallen angel or something like that?
You know, Scott, we just put our best guess labels on things sometimes. What is one person's dark angel is another person's demon, is another person's, dark-winged humanoid like Mothman. One of the distinguishing characteristics of Mothman was that there was no head, even though many drawings today show Mothman with a head. It's hard for us to imagine creatures without a head. But it had what appeared to be two red eyes. They were set in what would be the shoulder blades of a human being. So a very odd-looking creature.
That would certainly freak me out, I'll tell you, if I saw that.
Well, it's no wonder that, back in the 60s, people were just absolutely terrified. This was back at a time when we didn't have all the media attention on the paranormal like we do now, so it was completely off the radar for just about everybody. But I've often pondered this about how do we identify things, and I've been asked this a lot. How do you know it's A and not B? And sometimes we don't really. I find that in looking for these pattern experiences, and we do find the same patterns throughout history, but the same sort of experience and the same sort of being has been given dozens of different labels depending upon culture and interests and even religious beliefs. The interdimensional areas that we're dealing with really don't lend themselves to a nice little black and white pie chart. And it's a very blurry landscape, and it's constantly shape-shifting on its own. The phenomenon, so to speak, phenomenon with a capital P, will morph on you as a researcher. Just when you think you've got something nailed down, you find that it's shape-shifted into something else. And then we have a new iteration of it. So are we dealing with just something new that's evolved out of something old, or is it something entirely different? Take in point the black-eyed kids, black-eyed children. Really weren't any reports of the black-eyed children much before the 1980s. Yet they do have similarities to other kinds of dark entity contact experiences throughout the ages. And so are we dealing with just the latest form of some sort of demonic entity, or are they something entirely separate? Sometimes we just have to put a best guess on it. I have noticed in my investigations that there are subtle energy differences to some sorts of manifestations. Now, whether or not it's the same being manifesting as something else or different beings, two different forms at least have a different psychic signature to them, and sometimes behaviors differ as well. For example, in the Christian West, our concept of demons is that they're all servants of Satan and they want to subvert your soul. They're totally evil, and they want to possess you and turn you to an evil path so that you spend eternity in hell. That's basically the Christian concept of them. It's and it's a rigid concept. So there are certain kinds of cases where people do get into these religious soul struggles with some dark entity, and that fits the Christian demon model very well. But then what about these other dark entity experiences that also can possess, an entity can possess someone, but there doesn't seem to be any I want to send your soul to hell sort of struggle going on. The entity wants to occupy a human body to have physical pleasure. And so is that still a Christian demon, or is it something else? And I think we can get ourselves tied up in knots trying to separate the apples from the oranges when in fact so many of these entities share so many overlapping characteristics. You sort of have to try and look behind the facade to, well, what's the essential activity going on here? It's an unwanted, hostile, or malevolent presence that is detrimental to a human being, and we have to get away from some of these, religious labels and even some other labels in general. When I started researching the jinn, I came across many researchers who felt the jinn accounted for everything. They are masterful shapeshifters. And it's just us, angels, and the jinn account for everything paranormal. And that's a radical shift for most of us in the West to accept. And so far in my research, although I can see how the jinn can masquerade as many entities, I do believe that there are many other entities besides angels and jinn. And the jinn have just figured out how to insinuate themselves into the mix so that we never quite really know exactly what we're dealing with.
Aren't they connected to genies?
That's how we got to know them in the West, and we can thank the French for that. The jinn originated in ancient Arabian lore, pre-Islamic lore, and they did migrate into the demonologies of the cradle of civilization, the Babylonians, Assyrians, Sumerians. The early Hebrews picked up on their lore and absorbed them into that demonology. And they migrated into Islam. They have prominence in the Quran. And the original stories about them came from what are called the Arabian Nights, the Book of 1001 Nights, folk tales about supernatural beings. And when these tales were translated for Western audiences, first by the French translated jinn as genie. And it was in part a reference to the Roman spirit of place, because these jinn seem to be rooted to places sometimes. And that's genius, the genie being plural of that. So the jinn became the genie in the lamp, the bottle, the supernatural entity. When the tales were translated into English, and most notably by Sir Richard Burton in the late 19th century, Burton was very upset about this corruption of the word jinn, and he restored the original for his translation, spelled Jinn. That's a common spelling, and it's also spelled Djinn. But that's how they migrated into Western pop culture as the genie in the bottle, and they were never really treated very seriously. Here again we have that attitude like, oh well, this is all just a crazy story, it's all made up. And the genies were always portrayed as kind of silly things who, dress in weird Middle Eastern garb and grant wishes that don't come out very well. And when in fact the actual entities involved are quite the opposite. They are extremely intelligent and very crafty and cunning, and they have their own free will and pursuit of agendas just like we do. And some of them don't like us and have found ways to cause problems for us, but they are like human beings. Not all human beings are evil people. Many people are good, or a mix of good and bad, and we find the same thing in the spirit world too, that entities are not cookie cutter creations. They're not monochromatic. They don't all look alike. They don't all act alike. They don't all have the same dispositions.
I was going to say, are a lot of these angels, jinn, mothmen, demons, these entities from the spirit world, do you think they're connected to the realm that people associate with the afterlife, like when people die and possibly take spirit form? Will we get to sort of mix among these entities?
There does seem to be, in terms of like communicating with the dead, let me answer it from that perspective first. When we attempt to communicate with the dead, we get into another situation where how do we know exactly what we're dealing with? Even when we hear voices on recordings that sound familiar to us, or the communicator provides personal information pertaining specifically to us, we think we're talking to dead people we know, for example. And is there any way we can prove it? Well, very hard to prove. Because it's widely accepted in occultism that many entities can slip on discarnate human personalities and do very good masquerades. And in my paranormal investigations, I've come across this a lot, where you attempt to communicate with a presence in an environment, and whatever answers, how do you know? Do you have to accept it at face value. How do you know if it identifies itself as a human? How do you know it really is a human? And there have been so many cases where communicators have started out identifying themselves as humans, and they wind up being prankster spirits who are masquerading and playing jokes. And they reveal themselves at some point after you've kind of gotten yourself hooked into the whole process. Whether or not the dead have congress with any of these other entities from their abode in the afterlife, off the top of my head, I can't think of communications addressing that question. I've studied quite a bit of mediumistic and channel literature, as well as the EVP transmissions and things like that. And I can't think of anyone who's ever really talked about dealing with anything other than higher beings who they say are helping them build communication bridges to the living. There would be that angle, but in terms of these demonic prankster entities who seem to occupy the lower astral plane levels, hard to say.
What about, you get a lot of clairvoyants, fortune tellers, and mediums communicating with what they say are people in the afterlife, and how do people know whether they're not just people taking advantage of somebody who's who's mourning for someone who's just died and they desperately want to contact someone in the afterlife? How would someone know whether this is just someone taking advantage of them or someone who generally is actually contacting someone?
And when you say take advantage, you're talking about the person who is the medium, correct?
Yeah, the medium, yeah.
Well, unfortunately, there are people like that who will take advantage of grief. And I think most mediums, however, reputable mediums really do want to help people. And their abilities vary considerably in terms of what they're able to get into contact with. And so it's kind of a caveat emptor field out there where the best thing you can do is find someone by reputation of an organization. For example, if an spiritual organization sponsors certain mediums, then they've been well vetted and validated. Word of mouth as well. To at least get yourself with someone who has skill and who has a genuine interest in being of help. Now, one person can have a really great reading with a medium, and the next person might not have a very good reading at all. And it's not just because the medium didn't do the job. It's there are so many wild card factors in the mix. And having done readings myself, there are some clients that you can tune into just very easily, and it's like an open book and an open door, and away you go. You're just off and running from first contact. And then others are more of a struggle. It seems like they're in some sort of behind a barrier or in a fog zone, or it's more difficult to get in contact with what they're seeking. And there have been some readings that have been very hard in that regard. And from time to time, I have someone come along who I just don't feel that I'm going to be able to read for them very well. I'll tell them that and recommend someone else to them.
I mean, also, a lot of people have different religions and different theories about what happens when you die, ranging from heaven if you behave well on earth, to hell if you behave badly, and then you've got extremists who believe by killing people they might be rewarded in heaven for this act. How can people really know the truth? Because no one can come back from the dead. Or have you come across situations where people have come back?
Well, of course, we have the near-death experiences where people come to the threshold of death, which is not quite the same thing. And so what we're left with are communications that have been filtered through mediums. And the medium might be a device, like a recorder, for example, collecting electronic voice phenomena, the mystery voice, where you ask questions and wait for answers. And now in paranormal investigation, for some years, people have been using two-way communication devices, using jumbled up bits of radio sweep that seem to be like an audio canvas for spirit voices to impress themselves on. Quite a bit of evidence on that. The interesting thing about these afterlife communications, even though they are filtered through the living, and we all have our own prejudices and biases and expectations about the afterlife, but very few of these communications will hold up the tenets of what religions have to say about the afterlife. And that can come as quite a shock to people. Not that there isn't an afterlife. There does seem to be an afterlife. But it's not what religion teaches you. And you can point to any religion on the planet and make that statement that what you are taught to expect as some sort of divine guarantee does not seem to be the case. Rather, the afterlife is fluid. It is not static. People are not judged by a divine being and then sent to a good place or a bad place. There does seem to be some sort of reckoning for what you've done in life, and it's compensatory. That is, you compensate for, if you've done like bad things, like murdered people or something like that, committed crimes. There is some sort of compensatory environment for that. But people have the opportunity to heal, to redeem themselves, and to grow. And they learn to communicate telepathically and to manifest by thought, and that they can manifest bodies and environments by thinking about them. There seem to be outer reaches of the afterlife that, now I'm a believer in reincarnation, but there seem to be these outer reaches of the afterlife that once the soul passes into them, it's either very hard or impossible for us to continue a link with. And some of these souls will talk about they're preparing to go to another level where there's something else for them to do. And there seems to be an environment of continually striving for betterment, for purification. Many people also think that just because you die, the keys to all the mysteries of the cosmos are suddenly going to be revealed to you, and that is not the case either. And that's been reinforced over and over again in many types of communication. So, bottom line is, we aren't really going to know until we get there. Some of the communications reinforce the notion that, initially at least, the afterlife conforms to at least some of our expectations. And then after a period of adjustment, the soul finds out that more of what the afterlife is really like. So there does seem to be a transition period where people go to a place that's familiar to them, and they are met by other deceased people that they know and by spiritual helping beings, whether you want to call them angels or something else, but high-level spiritual helping beings who help the soul become acclimatized to the afterlife.
Have you ever seen the movie Flatliners?
Yes, I did.
That movie was where the medical students killed people under controlled conditions to bring them back to life, and sort of left a longer period between each resuscitation to see if they could actually go into the afterlife. Do you know if, in your research, have you come across anyone who's actually sort of explored that area at all?
I don't. I've encountered people who've expressed an interest in it and a willingness to do that, like the Kiefer Sutherland figure who subjects himself to the same thing because he wants to experience it as well. And even going into those periods of clinical death and then coming back, to me, it's still not the same as dying, because when you really die, you don't come back. Anything else is just a near-death experience. And how much of a near-death experience, how much of that is going to reveal the true nature of the afterlife is uncertain. What we have found in the near-death literature is that people reach a threshold like a bridge or a doorway, and they're told that either they can't cross over because it's not their time, or they have a choice, and if they do cross over, they can't go back. And some of them report certain kinds of experiences. And a fair number of these that have gotten written up and published are very religious in nature. They reinforce somebody's religious expectations. And we've had the Mormon view, we have Christian views.
I've heard of accounts of some Christians who say they died and they went to heaven, they were shown around, and they came back, and they've written books about it. I mean, are these people lying, or do they genuinely believe what they saw, do you think?
I think for the most part, there's such a body of literature on the near-death experience that yes, I think some people do get glimpses of the afterlife, or they're told certain things. And some of it may be for the purpose of coming back and disseminating the information to people, much like the prophet Enoch was taken up into heaven and given a grand tour of all the layers of heaven and told, dictated, God dictated a bunch of books to him and told him to go back and teach people about these things. So some of it may be instructive for that. But I have seen a few cases where I thought somebody's quote-unquote near-death experience was kind of propaganda for a certain religious message, or perhaps they had an experience that they put that spin on. That what they encountered there conformed with what they had been taught religiously. But what comes out of the communication with the dead on the other side is different. And over again they stress that religion doesn't matter over there, and that you're not going to be rewarded or punished according to religion. And most people don't even want to think about those things, let alone grapple with them, because religion is pretty thoroughly drummed into most of us from a very early age.
Yeah. What have your studies taught you about the notion of angels? I mean, there's some people who believe that when you die you maybe become an angel, but people say heaven's gained another angel. What's your research taught you about angels?
I do believe in angels, and some of my earliest experiences in childhood involved angels. Angels have a very interesting, varied history. We think of them as these all benevolent, always helpful, all wise, loving beings who will always come to our aid, when in fact earlier concepts of angels showed them to have a much more dualistic nature. They're more like human beings. They were God's messengers, God's enforcers, and God's bouncers. And if God wanted to punish someone, who did he send? An angel. And the angel would act out that punishment. It wasn't up to the angel to make the decision. And in the Merkaba tradition, stories of hostile angels who were not pleased to see human beings come along and have any participation in the spiritual mysteries or the higher heavenly realms, and whose hostility was used against people. So our concepts of angels certainly have changed over the years, and now we've seen a little bit of a return of that with the bad guy angel in film and fiction. It's a concept that I think most people don't like because we like to think of having some sort of spiritual good guys out there for us, you know. But they are real, and I think that they show up in very strange ways sometimes as the mysterious stranger, somebody who seems to be a real human being. These seems to be like imminent rescue cases where a person is in a true serious crisis, and someone will mysteriously show up and save the day, and then just as mysteriously disappear and not have leave any means for tracking them down.
Yeah, I mean, angels are considered far more positive entities. People like the idea of angels. It makes them feel sort of safe and comforted. Do you think that people do have guardian angels assigned to them, or are there spirits that move around with people and help them in a positive way?
I do, and I think that we have at least one such guardian being who's with us from birth to death, and maybe even from lifetime to lifetime. And there are others who come and go, depending upon what our interests are, what our life challenges are. There seem to be all kinds of spiritual teachers, and whether or not they would fall into our classification of angels or not, sometimes it's hard to determine. The bottom line is they seem to be higher level beings, more refined vibrationally, more refined spiritually, who are able to be in our sphere of energy and life and be available for help. They don't seem to assert themselves in any sort of dictatorial way. But they are available, which is why it's so important to spend time in prayer and meditation, because that's when they become more available to us. I think it's up to us to make our own decisions, and we can certainly get counsel and advice. So many cases in the saint literature, for example, of saints who had angels who, when asked, provided all kinds of counsel and advice. But ultimately, we have to make our own decisions. And what the angel does is provides an energy and a connection that will help us remain oriented toward the best possible choices, the best possible paths.
Have you, in your research, come across any recorded cases of people seeing angels, and what did they look like, if so?
Many cases of people seeing angels, and I've seen them myself. More often I've felt them, and that's what most people experience, is a sense of a presence. But their energy is so intense. It's a light energy, and you literally cannot look directly at it. It is so intense, it's blinding. And the times that this light has manifested around me, I have to look away. And I'm told that this light even is stepped down quite dramatically just to be able to fit itself into the third dimensional physical environment. And I have come across other descriptions, independent descriptions, the same from other people who have had similar experiences. I have never seen beings with wings. I think that's more of an artist construct through the ages to represent a being who has the ability to navigate to the higher planes. When I have seen them visually, they have been just intense pillars of light. But it's a communicating light, and my recognition of it is that it is an angel. Now, sometimes these pillars of light will identify themselves with a particular name, and sometimes you just know that it's an angel that's present. And for a reason. I mean, these beings don't drop in just to, entertain us. It's a response to something, to a need of ours.
Do you think part of that need is to feel safe and comforted? I mean, you often see pictures of angels standing by people's beds when they're sleeping, and it's a very comforting thought to feel like you could go to sleep because your guardian angel's standing at the foot of your bed. Where does that come from, do you think?
Well, certainly we do like to call upon angels when we go to sleep because sleep is the little death, and we're vulnerable when we sleep. And so the idea that we can be fully protected when we sleep is very comforting to most people. Interestingly, that's also one of the states of consciousness that we are most likely to have an angel encounter or any kind of spiritual encounter. The dreaming consciousness really breaks out of the physical bounds of space and time even, and gives us access to other dimensional realms where these sorts of encounters are more likely to be had. And even Plato recognized that. He called dreams the between states, the place where we go to meet the gods, so to speak, that we wouldn't have these encounters in waking consciousness, but in dreaming consciousness we can have them. And so many people do have experiences, lucid dreams or dreams, or even sort of twilight waking visions in that hypnagogic state, where they sense angels around the bed or even see them. And there have also been cases of angel healings during sleep that have been reported in the medical literature. People who have experienced, for example, a marked remission of a serious illness, and they say that, you know, the night before, their explanation is, well, I had a dream the night before where angels came to me, and I felt this light pour into me, and I felt that I was being healed. And then there is a dramatic shift in their prognosis after that. These sorts of experiences are also attributed to religious figures like the Virgin Mary. She seems to be another frequent dream healer figure.
Yeah, I mean, have you come across any other ideas as to what the purpose of dreams may be, whether they serve some kind of function? Because it does seem very strange that, you know, you can go through your day and then you have a dream, and you can see that certain parts of your day have affected your dream, and certain emotions you may have been feeling, like anxiety, can crop up in dreams. Do you think it serves some kind of purpose?
I certainly do, Scott, and I've been interested in dreams my whole life because of psychic dreaming in my family. And at a very early age, I was probing the dream world via sending and receiving messages, astral travel, and things of that sort. So dreams have always had spiritual importance to me. They have multiple functions, and one is just to keep us on an even keel, stable. Most of our dreams deal with our daily anxieties, our emotional life, how we feel we're doing in life. And dreams reflect that back to us, as well as provide information for how to, solve issues and problems. When life gets out of balance, dreams will confront us with that. Even in nightmare situations. Then there's another level of dreaming that's highly spiritual, that connects us to God, where people feel they have a direct connection to God, if nothing more than to be impressed with the fact that this connection exists. And this has a permeating effect on someone's life and consciousness after having one of these very, very powerful dreams. So these otherworldly figures can come into our dreams. We can have initiations with spiritual masters. We can have encounters with angels and religious figures. Even Saint Ambrose talked about lucid dreaming, and knowing that you're dreaming while you're dreaming, and the experience seems real. We can have visits with the dead. One of the books I wrote is called Dream Messages from the Afterlife, which is about real meetings with the dead that happen during dreaming consciousness, meetings that otherwise would not be able to take place. The dreaming consciousness is the bridge. And then we have another level of dreams, which seems to be the connectivity among all human beings. And science has demonstrated that when people are deprived of their rapid eye movement sleep, which is where most but not all dreaming takes place, then their health begins to suffer. And it starts out with low-grade chronic stuff, but if it's prolonged, then people can deteriorate quite a bit. So there's a health reason for our dreams, but we also share the dream landscape with others. And when people start talking about their dreams, they discover that they have the same dreams as other people, sometimes even on the same night, and may even lucidly dream together. So it brings us to some very interesting concepts of how are we dreaming life, and how is our dreaming life interwoven with our daily life? How do these two aspects of consciousness play off each other in terms of the manifestation of events in waking consciousness? Do we dream things into being? And so, yes, they have quite a bit of importance. Montague Ullman, who was one of the leading dream researchers, he did pioneering work in establishing that dreams are telepathic back in the 1960s. And he wrote some very interesting papers on the importance of dreams to the survival of the species. That if we did not have this interconnectivity in our dreams, it would be detrimental for humanity as a whole. And I subscribe to that view as well.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's hard to know the difference between reality and dream. I mean, if you dream you're flying and you seem to be able to consciously control where you're going, that's actually happened to me once before. Is that a dream or is it an out-of-body experience?
There's an overlap between the two, and we can go out of body when we dream. In fact, in some respects, it could be argued that all dreams are out-of-body experiences. And when we are lucid, we often have a sense of being out of body. You can have lucid dreams without feeling like you're literally out of your body. Most out of body, if you're dreaming and feel yourself exit your body, you're usually lucid. So there's a crossover here that you can lose it on the fine points, trying to distinguish one from the other. But lucidity is a state of dreaming where the dreamer can exert varying degrees of control over the dream. Some people have a great deal of control, and other people don't. They might lose lucidity as soon as they try to control things. But the research indicates that the state of lucid dreaming can be enhanced. People can teach themselves how to have more time in lucid dreaming. But some people, they're going to be the Mozarts of the lucid dreamers, and the rest of us are going to be playing chopsticks, but we can still improve ourselves. And that this state of dreaming also has a great deal of benefit for healing, self-healing in dreams, and for opening up creativity in profound ways.
Yeah, I was going to talk to you about that. I mean, on a related subject, sort of daydreaming, or rather sort of visualizing an event to help manifest it. I know you've done some research into that. Is it connected to positive thinking? I mean, visualizing something good to happen to sort of manifest a miracle in your life?
It absolutely is. People have underestimated the power of thought to manifest. And the whole concept of daydreaming sounds like, well, you're just kind of wool gathering, or, it's fanciful thinking, wishful thinking, never really goes anywhere. But it depends on how you direct your thoughts and with what intensity. And it's taught in metaphysics that manifestation happens first on the mental plane. You have to think it first before it can even become concrete reality. And a great deal of our thoughts, you know, we have thousands and thousands of thoughts throughout the course of a waking consciousness period, and a lot of them just go spinning off into the ethers. But if we concentrate our thought and combine it with visualization and emotional intensity, and we can sustain that over a period of time, it does shift reality in profound ways. Now, we have collectives to deal with, too, so it's not like you're going to do a makeover on yourself and suddenly become, overnight, something else. But we can make significant changes in not just the circumstances of our lives, but the opportunities that are going to be opening to us in the future, or how we make decisions. If you stick to that practice as part of your plan of living, it does have a positive effect. You will have better opportunities. You will, quote unquote, be luckier in terms of things working out for you the way you would like them to. But it also requires a great deal of spiritual grounding and not being materialistic. You know, if you're greedy and materialistic and all you want is, for example, a pile of money so you can play, well, you probably could manifest that if you tried hard enough, but it wouldn't enrich your life spiritually. It would be better for you to envision yourself in some as having abundance around you, or always having what you needed. And actually, it's more important to be healthy than wealthy, because without health, wealth means very little.
Have you come across any research that shows whether TV, movies, and things like that can affect our thoughts and dreams?
Well, they certainly do, because we are heavily influenced by the media, and for better or for worse. You know, if we see it on the screen, we believe it, even if it's fiction. And these so-called reality shows that we've been plagued with in the paranormal, there's very little real about them, but people think that they're real because they see it on the screen. And, Marshall McLuhan back in the 60s commented on this in terms of the power of this medium the power of the medium of television to affect the masses and affect what we believe. It
certainly seems like sci-fi movies, after a period of sort of 20 or 30 years, it just seems like they eventually come to pass, you know.
Well, yes, and here this could be a visioning process going on, but we also have the question of is life imitating art, or is art imitating life, and how are these things intertwined? If we keep seeing it repeatedly, does it become reality then? Or are the artists who are conceiving of these concepts, are they reaching into the future and pulling it into the present? And having been a fan of science fiction for most of my life, I've always been struck by the visionary talents of sci-fi writers to conceive of things decades before anyone, would think of these certain things, devices or abilities being part of daily life, and yet an artist has conceived of it and pulled it out of the ethers, and so then life comes around to imitate the art. So does art reflect the world we're in, or does it create the world that we're going to become, or is it a little bit of both? These are complex questions that are the answers probably lie in some middle realm of both and. But when we immerse ourselves in doomsday scenarios, like all the aliens are bad, they're coming to conquer the world, and death and destruction everywhere. Are we seeding concepts that will then become reality because people have been so inundated with them, or are they warnings of something that will unfold? Well, in the concept of parallel dimensions and that we are constantly spinning off realities with every thought and every decision, all of these scenarios then become possible.
I mean, you do get some people who are very negative thinking, and also people who worry a lot and imagine bad things are going to happen. So it could actually affect their reality then.
It certainly does. And if you're the kind of person that says things like, oh, nothing ever works out for me, or if something bad's going to happen, it's going to happen to me, or I knew that wasn't going to work out. Well, you've created energy for your own self-fulfilling prophecies. And this is where marshaling and managing your thought processes becomes very important. Even making a joke about it, it still puts a vibration out there in terms of a reality or a concept. It has gravity to it.
How could someone who's in that kind of negative way of thinking snap out of that?
Well, one way of doing it is to be more mindful of your thoughts and to police them better. And that when you catch yourself thinking that way in some sort of self-deprecating or detrimental way, to visualize that thought, crumble it up, let it go, disintegrate it, and replace it with a better thought, something that might even be the complete opposite. Now, where things like visualization and affirmation don't take hold very well for people is you really have to believe it deep in your being. And just saying those things, has a much more limited effect than when you can really incorporate it deep into your own belief system. You have to really believe it. And this emotional energy, the power of the emotional energy, we find that all throughout metaphysics and magic as well. This is an energy that drives manifestation. And even psychic energy runs on emotion.
I just wanted to ask you a final question, really, which was, do you think that the emphasis on paranormal studies will increase over the coming years? And do you think that maybe technology will sort of merge with the paranormal, with things like tapping into the human mind and creating simulations of reality to solve crimes, predict the future, etc.?
The speed at which these things can happen depend a lot upon the ability of organizations and scientists to have plentiful resources available for research and study. And what we've seen over the decades since about the 1960s and 70s is a continual drying up of funds available for serious research into what you would call these psychic or psychic associated areas. And to the point where qualified scientists and technical experts who would like to pursue things feel that it's even a career killer to do so, even if they could find the backing and the funds. So it's really been left up to independent researchers who have varying levels of skills and finances to pursue their own independent inquiries. And I think that's going to continue and probably pick up as more people become interested. But we're still seeing a serious lag on the institutional end.
I guess that's another example of how the powers that be can control people's education into topics like this. Just take away the funding.
Yes, and whether or not that's been deliberate or not, one of the problems in parapsychology has been the emphasis on results. And in other words, what are the practical applications of proving that certain psychic things exist? And that's where the research really falls down. We can prove that telepathy exists. We've even proved in parapsychology that psi exists, psychokinesis and clairvoyance and things like that. But what do we do with it? And what are the reliable applications? Well, there aren't any reliable applications because these abilities are so subjective. They play out differently in different people. And this topic has been debated for quite some time. It's like, where are the applications? Some years ago, I participated in some tests called the Gansfeld test. And it was a telepathy test that was in a laboratory. And the short of it is you sit in a chair in a soundproof room with your eyes open but covered so that you don't actually fall asleep. And someone outside the room, a computer randomly picks an image, and someone outside of the room sends that image to you telepathically, and then you're scored on how well you pick up on it. And thousands and thousands of these tests were done with rather remarkable results, even to the point where they discovered a market pattern that people would dream the target image 2 or 3 nights in advance, even though a computer picked it at random right before the test began. But when it came to applications, and I interviewed Dr. Charles Honorton, who really spearheaded most of the research on that, and he was at a loss for, we don't know what the applications are. And he had this funding to do these tests at the laboratory, and he did endless reiterations of this test until the funding ran out and the laboratory closed. And so we're sitting around with a pile of statistics and no applications. And that's where the whole psychic realm has been. It's been a stepchild of science with nobody knows how to grapple with it because it doesn't fit into the conventional scientific model. Hopefully we'll find some ways to get around that so that we can have an increase in studies that are well funded and well conducted.
Let's hope so, yeah. Just one final thing before we finish today, and it's changing the subject a little bit, but still interconnected, and maybe might be a prelude to another conversation in another interview someday. But I know you've studied a lot about the paranormal world and witchcraft and maybe satanic rituals as well. I wondered if you ever see stuff on TV or on like music videos. There's been a lot of talk of certain pop stars using symbolism. Do you ever notice stuff like that when you're watching videos on TV?
Well, I confess that I stopped watching music videos a long time ago. Most of them got to be too disturbing for me.
Yeah. I was going to say architecture and like in London we have all kinds of gremlins outside people's houses and just things like that. It's the symbology of satanic symbols and witchcraft.
Well, there are all kinds of symbols used in architecture and in the media, yes, and I have heard that about the rock stars as well. I think some of it's for shock value more than anything. And some of the symbols are more, they're magical symbols or chemical symbols, and they really don't have an intrinsic good or bad to them. They represent a power or force or some sort of concept. And there are others that have more of a darker association. So like the gremlins you're talking about, you might be referring to gargoyles, which gargoyles, which are monstrous-looking things, but their true purpose is to keep away the evil spirits. It's something that's worse than evil spirits to keep the evil spirits out. So they actually have a protective function.
Okay. Well, they don't. Yeah. So it just shows you that not everything that looks good is good, and not everything that looks bad is bad.
It boils down to having a foundation of knowledge about these things, so that you can be more informed about them. And the average person gets what they know about the paranormal and the occult off media, which isn't exactly when I say media, I'm talking about entertainment, film, television. Nothing wrong with entertainment, but most of it's fictionalized. And most people don't stop to think that these things go a lot deeper, and they have quite a bit of intertwining in daily life.
Yeah, well, thanks very much for sharing your knowledge with us today. Really appreciated you coming on and talking to us, and maybe come back again sometime in the future with whatever new project you're working on and let us know about what's going on.
I'd be happy to, Scott. Thank you so much. It's been a very interesting conversation.
It has indeed. I mean, like I said, we could talk about each of these topics for hours. Unfortunately, we don't have time today. But Rosemary, if people want to find out more about your some of the work you've done, the books you've written, and maybe I know there's lots of videos on YouTube. I mean, where should they go if they want? Have you got a website or a place people can go to?
My main website is visionaryliving.com. I have a library of articles there from many of the books that I've written. You can subscribe to my free monthly e-newsletter, Strange Dimensions, and I have my monthly calendar of events posted on the homepage as well. If you want to learn about the jinn in particular, I have a whole website devoted to them, and that's jinnuniverse.com. That's spelled with a D-J-I-N-N, universe.com. And I have hundreds of postings now from people all over the world who've chimed in with their experiences, and that site is quite an eye-opener.
Thank you so much for coming on. Have a great day.
Thank you very much, Scott. You too.
Thanks a lot then. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
So many thanks to Rosemary. Hope to speak to her again. We talked about maybe doing a show on positive thinking, as there's plenty to be depressed about in this world, and it would be nice to look at ways of changing the way we think so we can see hope rather than despair. Going to bring the show to an end now. Remember, blind belief in authority is the greatest enemy of truth. Albert Einstein. And just to remind you, I've added a donations button to the About section on the YouTube channel. Feel free to support us if you can, if you'd like to do your bit for standing up to our governments. We're non-profit. In fact, we're making a loss at the moment. People who donate over £30, even if it's not all at once, so that you could do £5 one week, £2 another. After you've got to the £30 mark, send me an email and you'll get sent a Truth Sentinel t-shirt. It may take a bit of time, but they're on their way from Ukraine at the moment, should be here within the week. On the back is the Einstein quote. On the front is the Truth Sentinel logo. You can see photos of it on if you go to if you go to Twitter. If you go to Twitter, you can see some photos of the actual t-shirts and the design. If you donate less than £30, say £5 or something like that, then you'll get a mention on the show anyway as an official sponsor. We are looking for official sponsors as well. So if you're a company that produces anything that's related to truth or truth seeking, or things like political t-shirts, activist groups, preppy stores, that kind of stuff, then get in contact. For a very, very nominal amount, even just a percentage, you can advertise on this channel. I want to keep everything free on here for listeners. If you're short on cash in this economic crisis, completely understand. You can help in another way. Share the links and the playlist. Help find guests. If you've got a lot of followers on Twitter, tweet the link if you like to show. It's very much appreciated. I really would like to increase the amount of listeners. I like that it's a small, intimate group at the moment, but it's a bit like the overpopulation myth. There's actually room for more people as well, and it's good to spread the idea that we can change the world. That's what I'm hoping to do. We can change the world peacefully. It will take a bit of time, but we have a lot of power. These are only a small amount of people that are making our world a worse place. We can do something about it if we all get together. This show is about spreading tolerance, looking for peaceful but revolutionary, radical change to make a better society, because I think people have become very used to how our society is. But think how it could be. What would you do if you got into power, for example? If you and a group of your friends took over a government, what would you do? What laws would you change? I can imagine, if you're a half-decent people, the world would be a much, much different place within a couple of years, I don't mean the kind of change that Obama talks about. I mean, I actually tweeted some of the promises he made and the lies and the current situation of some of his promises. I may put that up on this episode, some of the tweets, because sometimes when I get some time during the week, I tweet out some sort of more political messages, and I make a few graphics. So I might put them up on today's episode, the ones I've done so far. I'll occasionally do that. I can't do it every episode because I've still got other work commitments at the moment. Finally, thanks again to Denise for your donation, to Kieran P with his help with promotion. I'm hoping to get a t-shirt to him. Do come and say hi. If you'd like to come and say hi, get in contact on Facebook, Twitter, or email scottsentinel9@gmail.com. Type in Truth Sentinel on any of those platforms and you should find us, or Scott Sentinel sometimes. Topics coming up in future episodes could include time travel, religious cults, any news events that need addressing, parallel universes, the control of scientific fact and history. Shows that we support are Hagman and Hagman, Freeman Fly, Mark Cocking, John Gary, David Icke, any of those shows, Alex Jones of course, many others actually, but those are the ones I can think of at the second. Hope you have a good week. Thanks very much for listening. Please again, if you are an authority on any particular topic, please contact us again, scottsentinel9@gmail.com. Thanks once again for listening. Take it easy. Catch you later. Goodbye.